Hey, this is Bill. A few weeks ago, we here at Combustible saw an essay being shared on social media. It was written by a former Birmingham firefighter named George Cowgill, and it was a sometimes tender, sometimes heartwarming, and sometimes brutal account of his time in the fire service, and his reasons for leaving it now. Hatch and I interviewed George by phone on the night of November 9th. It had only been about 20 days since he first posted his essay, but it had gone viral, which is a testament to the power of it. But what kind of drew us in was the fact that so many firefighters had shared what he wrote. As George described the arc of his career, we're sure many firefighters like us remembered some of the similar calls that we've been on, and some of us probably identified with the emotion in what he wrote. There is a strange familiarity to his words, and after our interview with him, Hatch and I felt like we knew him, even though we'd only just met. Maybe that's the fire service in a nutshell. Maybe we're all part of the same story. That's why it's so familiar. Our interview with George is coming up in a few minutes, but in case you haven't read Resigning, Retiring, and Leaving the Birmingham Fire Department, here's George Cowgill in his own voice.
Resigning, Retiring, and Leaving the Birmingham Fire Department by George Cowgill, October 2022. Regrets, I've had a few, but then again, too few to mention. And I use those lyrics as covered by the Sex Pistols and given with the snarl of one Sid Vicious, not Sinatra. Anyway, for the past few months, I've been on sabbatical from the fire department, trying to decide what I wanted, what I should do, and if that part of my life was who I was anymore. I've decided. And Sid Vicious, he overdosed and died when I was in kindergarten, 1979. I've had a gun held to my head, literally, and a cop shot the man holding it 4 times in the chest before that man could pull the trigger. And if he hadn't, I wouldn't be saying this now, I'd be rotting in a graveyard. Another time, open season had been declared on the Birmingham police. Me, standing over an Eastlake overdose in a Section 8 parking lot, pushing Narcan, and a semi-automatic weapon rained down bullets. I dove behind the apartment's exterior staircase. The lead hit the pavement around us. It sounded like bouncing marbles. The cop with us that night quit, never came back to work. I delivered a baby once in an upstairs bathroom near Legion Field. A year later, my friend Bryant made sure we didn't forget her birthday, and we went to a party they had for her in an open field. Nothing felt more like it mattered. I once walked into a house full of children squatters, no one older than 16. The house didn't have power, instead huge piles of trash, and the kids used their phone lights to lead us to a back bedroom. We found the 14-year-old mother lying in a pile of trash, her newborn next to her, still connected by the umbilical cord, also lying in a pile of trash. The mother was texting on her phone and inconvenienced. She told us she discovered that she was pregnant when the child started to cry out of her. No one cares. I've worked alongside gods, some of the best people on this planet. Men and women so genuine it doesn't make sense. Dedrick Hope, that last sentence is for you. I've worked alongside child molesters, pedophiles, and sexual predators. These things tend to only come out after the fact. True nonetheless. I've been stuck with a heroin-emptied needle a few moments after I'd been in the arm of the man overdosing right outside the Anchor Motel. They ran a bunch of tests on me, and I never heard anything else about it, and that was 7 years ago. I jogged 2 miles uphill on Ruffner Mountain on a bad right hip to find a young girl ready to take her own life. She was pretty and 23 and oh so serious. She'd left detailed goodbye letters to her loved ones on the dash of her car. Out of breath, we talked for forever and made promises to give life another look. I've gone to 1, 2, 3 firefighter suicide funerals. One was a good friend who hung himself on Christmas Eve. This past year, I met his son, who's now in the fire department, and I cried my eyes out. I've carried a 5-year-old girl out of a burning building. No one cares. I've broken up bloody dog fights. My frayed outlook on humanity, it tends to put cats and dogs on a pretty high pedestal. I've been attacked. 10-on-1, 5-on-1, 1-on-1. I just laughed. I drove a fire engine through my neighborhood on Halloween, handing out candy to the packs of costumed children. They looked at us like gods. I've carried the bodies of dead children, car accidents, domestic accidents, SIDS. Every time it was as awful as it sounds, maybe worse. I got promoted. I got demoted. I've seen so many people overdose and die, So many. Too many. Die like Sid Vicious. I've been drug tested countless times. Dozens, hundreds, who knows? No one cared that I'm straight edge. Since day one, circa 2006, I've been assigned to the busiest fire stations in the great state of Alabama. Station 19, Station 14, Station 21. 24-hour hauls every third day. I walked around like a zombie for most of the days that followed each shift. I've dug through soot and ash on my hands and knees for the burned remains of an infant, left behind to die by her father. When we first got there, the flames were 2 stories higher than the roof, lighting up the Kingston sky. I've worked under chiefs that could be kings, men that can back up every task, every order with their own actions. I've worked under chiefs afraid of fire, justifying it with bizarre and unjust orders. I've been suspended for wrecking a fire engine, for starting an IV, and for disobeying orders, and for disobeying orders. And another time for disobeying orders. I love fire. I laughed at all the wrong times to keep from falling apart. I wrote the history of the Birmingham Fire Department, and it was printed in a book. I called it The Fight, and I quoted Springsteen. I don't have much fight left. 16 years and some change. Will I miss it? Sure, some things. My beautiful friends, who I lived with every third day and fought with in the trenches. And I'll miss carrying on the legacy of my father, a veteran warrior with Birmingham for 23 years. But it's time for me to go. I'd always promised myself that I'd step away when I was no longer in love with firefighting. And does that break your heart to read? Because it certainly breaks mine to write it down. And money? It's never been about the money. Never. Ever. There's just so much more I want to do. Write, family, black market, hockey, and hockey. In closing, feel free to insert any cliche expression that you feel fits here. Closing chapters, moving on, or some other bumper sticker saying you may know. But for me, it's not about some endless search looking to find some vague meaning of life. It's about continuing to find the meaning of my life. End. We'll laugh like little children telling secrets, probably cry like old women drinking gin, 'cause I've done my tour of duty, now I'm home, and I ain't leaving here again. Jason Isbell.
And now, here's our interview with George Cowgill. We are here with George Cowgill, who is a former firefighter with Birmingham. Is it Birmingham Fire Rescue or Birmingham Fire Department or?
It's the Birmingham Fire Rescue Service.
Birmingham Fire Rescue Service. All right. And George, tell us a little bit more about who you are, because I know you've written some books. You've got a blog. You own, I think, 2 bars.
Yes. I'm born and raised in Birmingham, Alabama. I'm 49 years old. Second generation firefighter for Birmingham. My dad worked in the same neighborhoods. He's still around. We talk every day. He's a great guy. He did 24 years for Birmingham. Retired back in the late 90s. I got on with Birmingham at about 2006. And about the same time, I started deciding I had a bartending background my whole life. I bartended and waited tables. And at the time that I got on the fire department, I was leaving a job at a restaurant, and I'd already decided that I was going to own my own place. So we started working on that, and it was rough, but my first bar opened up the same time when I was in rookie school, and it just sort of worked out that way. So we've sort of morphed that one bar into 2 bar and grills. They're full restaurants, and they're called Black Market Bar and Grill. Shoot, what else?
I have to say you're the first person I've heard has opened a bar or restaurant during rookie school.
Yeah, no doubt. That sounds like a really chaotic time to try and pull a venture like that off.
You have no idea what that was 16, 17 years ago, and it was so difficult that everything now and since then, time management wise, people are, how do you work restaurants and firefight? That's a cakewalk compared to doing it in rookie school. Because man, they wanted us in the parking lot at 6:30 a.m.
Yeah,
and we were doing last call at 1:30, 2 in the morning, and I didn't miss a day. I mean, I shudder to think what I looked like, and back then, my eyes.
I don't know how you did that, because
yeah,
I mean,
no
I had a very regimented. I didn't have anything else that was kind of competing for my attention while I was in rookie school, and that was very much to my benefit.
Did the organization know that you had a bar?
They did. They did. They were always I don't drink. I don't smoke. I haven't done any of that stuff since junior high. So I never gave them, I didn't come in hungover. I'd come in tired, but
Right.
A quart of coffee and then I just get through it.
Right.
One thing that really saved me, I think, was I went into rookie school as an EMT, and I was the only one in the class. So those guys, and they I had to sit there every day, but I didn't have to protect. I was already an EMT.
You had to go to
there.
EMT school, but you didn't have to do anything.
Right. It was in rookie school. So for 6 weeks, there was that. So I could just sit. I couldn't sleep, but I didn't. I just sort of zoned out. And
Wow.
But I got lucky on that regard.
So,
but
was it your father that kind of got you into firefighting?
I grew up. Yes. He never really pressed it on me. And my mom, I love. They're still married. They've been married, I don't know, 100 years. But they were always supportive, but they never really pushed it on me. And I remember my dad and I, when I told him, I always knew eventually I would end up doing it. I was in a band and just bartending and stuff like that. And I was like, I knew eventually that I would get my act together. I always wanted to be a firefighter because, I grew up worshiping him. He is, still will be a hero. I mean, my God, no mask, going into fires, pulling people out with a cigarette in his mouth. I'm not joking.
Right.
And those guys, those old heads, they did it differently. They really did.
Yeah. As a rookie, I was the only one on at my station that didn't smoke, I think.
Yeah.
That was like that was just the thing.
I know. I just, fortunately I never picked up that habit from him, but, I always knew I was going to do it. So,
but you chose to do it with the same department that he did.
mm-hmm.
I mean, I'm assuming that was a conscious decision.
Sure. And, with a weird name like mine, I'm the third actually. So we have the same name. So we're both George Cowgill. And so, when I went in, a lot of the guys he'd worked with were like, George is coming back. And like, no, it's his idiot son with the tattoos. And, I loved it, it's like, what else, late 20s kid, it was what I was supposed to do.
Well, what was it like following in those footsteps? I mean, was there, were you kind of in his shadow?
It was, but I'd learned, someone pulled me aside in rookie school that, he turned out to be a chief at the time. He's a lieutenant. He's like, look, he's just like, just do whatever they tell you. They tell you to clean the bathroom, no problem. They want you to cook, no problem. I mean, you guys have been around the firehouse. There's those guys that want to be a part of it and do their share and get that reputation as, I'll do whatever you tell me. I may screw up, but I'm going to do my best.
Right.
Do something. I want to do something. I don't want to just stand around. So I really went at it with that. I'd rather screw up and as opposed to just standing there and not trying. So, he had a really good reputation. He got along with everyone, and I've got sort of that personality too. I try my best to get along with everyone, and oh, you guys haven't met me. I'm like, man, I'm head to toe covered in tattoos. I'm bald. I look like an ex-wrestler. That's what I always tell people I look like. So I don't look like I'll be as nice and soft as I am, but I'm gonna push over.
All right.
Oh, it's just window dressing, huh?
Yeah, exactly. It's like porcupine,
Yeah, neither one of us are second generation firefighters, so I've always kind of be interested in that, like the mindset of somebody going in knowing that they're following somebody like your dad who you looked up to, and I assume you assumed that the department did, or that he may be kind of a little bit of a legend, or you didn't want to hurt his reputation. So did that
Absolutely.
give you like any anxiety going in of like, man, anything I do that I screw up, it's going to kind of weigh on him as well? Did that give you anxiety going in?
I didn't really worry about it just as much because I just went in with the mentality that I'm going to work as hard as I humanly can. I mean, I'm not like, I didn't grow up being like this super overachiever, but once I got in that fire department stuff, I was really into it. I believed in it. I believed that the job, I still do, that the job matters.
Right.
I worked so many jobs where it's like, if I don't show up to work today, what's going to happen? It's like they're going to need another server, or, some tables aren't getting bust. But you get that job and like, you have to go because it matters. So that gave me more anxiety just knowing that once I got past that. I remember laying in bed on the stations. You know, when you first get on, you start sleeping, these little cots they got for you, you know, knowing that bell could ring and it could be, you know, assisting an old woman, or that bell could ring and it could be a 3-story house file with children in it.
Yeah.
You never knew.
Right.
So I really had to start controlling that anxiety to, you know, and no matter what they threw at you, I had to get up as fast as I could and get on that engine. So I think young guys, I think that's something they really have to master coming on.
Oh, no, you're absolutely right.
Yeah, I always say we kind of get the master class in being able to wing just about anything. We show up, we've never seen it before, but man, we got a plan on how we're going to take care of it.
Absolutely. And it's not just fire. It's, I mean, you guys are in Atlanta. I mean, that's a tough town. I mean, Birmingham, we're a tough town. I mean, murders and everything. And you have to get on there and anticipate seeing something that you're not going to be able to forget easily because it's so traumatic. And not fire, just violence. That, you know, and I have so many friends, after I wrote that article, they were like, I didn't know you guys did all that. I thought I just went to fires. I'm like, no. We go pretty much everything.
Yeah.
You know? So I know you guys have gotten that, surely.
Yeah, I was telling Bill during dinner, though, I got more PTSD from what administration has asked me to do than what calls I've been on.
I think that, well, what's your rank? What are you?
Battalion chief.
Oh, get out of town, really?
Yeah,
okay.
I'm sorry.
No, it's
Bill's a deputy chief. It's even worse.
man, you guys are one of my best friends, battalion chief, Michael Israel. And, yeah, we talk every day. He's still he's a really good guy, and he's still a fighter. It's hard to keep him out of fires and stuff. I mean, it's one of them. Shoot. Yeah, I get that completely about administration. I just, especially at that level you guys are at, it has to be more political. I just made it up to lieutenant, and it was eating me alive. You know?
Yeah.
So.
Well, you mentioned in what you wrote, you know, there's a particularly poignant part where you said, you know, I got promoted, and then you immediately followed that with I got demoted.
Yeah.
Was that
no, go ahead.
Well, I mean, was it? I've known people that have stepped down on purpose because it didn't turn out to be what they thought it was going to be, but that didn't sound like that was kind of what you were writing. It sounded like that was kind of forced on you.
No, I was promoted, and then this is about the time I'd gone on sabbatical. They had decided that my paperwork hadn't been in order, and I shouldn't have been promoted. And it had been, you know, and I proved it's been in order. And I mean, it's kind of boring. And they demoted me. And then in the appeals, pretty much around the time that they decided that they rescinded it. So they were going to reinstate or undemote me. Is that a word? I don't even know.
Golly.
I mean, that was the plan. But, you know, and my lawyer talked to them, and they're like, would you be willing to just be undemoted and go back and miss out on the $17 that, you know, I'd missed in a few months of promotion money? And I said, sure, but I'll be honest with you, I'd already made up my mind by then that I was going to leave. I was like, it really just seems like a lot of work to, from leaving anyway. So.
Gotcha.
Well, George, it sounds like, I mean, you've definitely got a love for the job, and what you wrote. I mean, you've definitely experienced some of the more dramatic elements of firefighting and all of the other stuff that we do on some of these calls that we go on. And, you know, with as much as you obviously love the job, you've kind of laid it out in what you wrote, but I mean, can you talk a little bit more about how you came to that decision that it was time to leave?
I didn't want to do anything in haste. So a few months ago, when it was really weighing on me that maybe this part of my life had run its course, I didn't want to just say I quit or put in my 2 weeks notice. So I talked to my doctor, you know, I got on FMLA, and I said, listen, I was having trouble sleeping. I didn't know what I wanted to do, but I was really considering leaving, but I didn't want to do it in haste. So I took a couple of months FMLA, and I really thought about it. And the time away from it, I felt like this weight had been lifted from my shoulders. The worrying about going, you know, you go 24 hours and they've got you locked down, and you come home the next day and you walk around like the undead because you didn't sleep that night.
Yeah.
And then you wake up the next day refreshed, but you've got to prepare for going back the next day. And I'd always said, I think I put this in the essay, but I'd always said it aloud to my friends that when I truly wasn't in love with what I was doing anymore was when I was going to step away for a number of reasons. One, for my own sanity and my family's, and two, just so I don't get hurt or get someone hurt, because, you know, I'm not in a position where I'm crazy about being a firefighter anymore. And it reached this position that it was never about the money, and I could step away and at the restaurant, say, you know, my wife works. I mean, she's smarter than every firefighter I've ever met combined, you know? So
right.
It's like, it just, my tour was over, you know, and no regrets. Will I miss it? Yes, absolutely. I mean, I'm scared. I've told her this. If I see a house fire, we're pulling over. I mean, you know, like, I mean, I'll probably, I mean, I've done it before. I'll pry a door back. I don't care. I'll get my shorts. I don't care. You know, I just, there's some things that I'll miss greatly, but it was time for me to go. It really was. And when I accepted that fact, it was calming. It really was. No regrets.
Yeah. Well, you know, I know that wasn't an easy decision, and
not at all.
How did you know, we've read some of the comments on your Facebook page after the post that you did. And there's a lot of support there. I mean, there's a lot of people, and I don't know how many of them are strangers and how many of them, obviously some of what they wrote was very personal. So I know that, you know, they know you, but you know, how did your family and friends kind of react to your decision?
They, my close family, the ones that I talk to on a regular basis, my father, my wife, my sister. I've got a 22-year-old daughter. She's amazing. The ones I talk to on a regular basis, they were all for it. They were like, if you think it's time to go, we trust your decision. I mean, there's no, you know, I mean, every now and then I would run into someone like, you sure you can't hang around 4 more years and get the full pension and all that? And I was like, it's time to go now. We suffered a really, really tragic loss. We lost my sister-in-law this summer. She was 24, smart, gorgeous, took her own life. And it just, that happened on my sabbatical from work. And I just, you know, I didn't want to, not that I would ever commit suicide, but, you know, the fact that I even thought about it when I would get depressed and see things so bad that it even crossed my mind. I didn't like the dark places my mind went to. And those became more frequent than the optimism that, well, I'm here to help these dark places.
Right.
So, you know, the ones closest to me to get into my head a little bit got a little more than the, you know, the over the bar answer. And they were very supportive.
Right. Well, it's good that you had that support.
Absolutely.
I don't know, you know, what you wrote came to us on Facebook, shared by, at least on my feed, it was shared by another firefighter. And I want to say when I looked it up on AL.com, I think it had 660 something shares as of right now. And you only put it out on October 20th. So, I mean, we're talking, you know, 2 weeks ago. So I think it's fair to say what you wrote really resonated with people. What do you hope that firefighters in particular and potentially new firefighters get from what you put out there? Because I mean, there's a lot of firefighters that are reacting to it.
Sure. It doesn't, like, I've been writing for the fire department, but I've always sort of had that governor on being an employee, you know, like I would write things and I would have to be in the back of my mind, like I don't want to get called downtown and explain why I thought this was okay to write, you know,
right.
Or, you know, it's a strange administration here, or it can be. And that was the first piece I wrote that, like, I'm going to write what I want to and put it out there. And the reaction I got from so many people was just amazing. And to answer your question, I think young firefighters, and for any firefighters who are still out there, just that you have to be prepared for so much more than what they tell you to in rookie school. So much more than fire. The violence, just the meaningless accidents that have cost the lives of so many firefighters that have not, you know, a small wreck on the highway. You know, the most dangerous place to be a firefighter is the highway.
Agreed.
You know, just someone.
100%.
There's so many have been hit here, and a friend of my dad's got killed on the highway. Just hit, just on a couldn't have been on the highway working it. Someone ran over him, and besides what you teach in rookie school is just the tip of the iceberg. There's so many facets of human behavior and fire behavior and storms. I mean, you guys have been on a long time. Y'all know, you've seen it all. I mean, we went to one, a tree I don't even know how big this tree was. It fell and it pinned a babysitter underneath. The kids had gotten out of the house, crushed the house, and she was pinned. And we were out there for about 8 hours working. And when all was said and done, we got her out. But one firefighter had gone to the hospital, and another one had a heart attack and went to the hospital too. Wow. He survived. But I mean, it's just they don't tell you how things can get in these situations, and you know. So that's something I think resonated. A lot of the feedback I got from non-firefighter, non-police, non-military was like, I had no idea. And, you know, it's kind of great. You know, I mean, the smugly say, well, now you do. But, you know.
You know, kind of following up what you said there, you know, you just never know. Everybody has like a different cup of how much they can handle, how much they can see, and you just never know when your cup's going to be full. Kind of concept. And me and a lieutenant, there was a young crew riding on the engine company, and they had gone to had to get dispatched to a jumper call out of a high rise, and they got canceled, and but they went anyway because they wanted to see the jumper. And so when they came back, the lieutenant kind of sat them down, and we were like, you know, you're gonna have a long career here. You never know when you're gonna see too much. Don't go looking for it, because trust me, there's going to be times when you're not going to have a choice. That time you had a choice, you should have just turned around and come back home.
Yeah.
They're like, did we do something wrong? I'm like, no, you didn't do anything wrong. I'm just trying to, you know, from an older guy have been here a long time, I'm just telling you, you just never know when it's too much for you.
Absolutely. In these departments that we're working in, I mean, I don't know what would be the equivalent. Like, you know, we're Birmingham, and we're surrounded by a lot of smaller departments, and fortunately for those guys, they don't see as much, you know, so a lot of them don't, you know, I can't really say, I mean, it wouldn't mean anything to y'all, Vestavia, Homewood. I mean, just, you know, they'll run a couple of calls a shift, you know, much higher demographic, and, you know, they don't see that stuff. So that, man, that'd be something to see. And I'm like, it wears on you. It does. I mean, I created, like, I tell people I created something that was like my armor, and it was to laugh at things. I mean, they taught us that, you know, coming up from the older heads, it's like, you've got to laugh it off. You got to make jokes that, you know, you can't take to your family because they're not appropriate, you know, just to be able to get through some of the worst things you're going to see. And I built that up, and it worked for the most part with just humans, but just anything with children would just eat me alive. Yeah. I mean, surely you guys too. Yeah. I mean, I don't know what y'all seen, but when bad things happen to children, I can't stand it. I can't. I mean, I'll never forget it. I mean, every single one I'll remember till I die.
Yeah.
And you're right. Like, I mean, some of the things, you know, I'm not going to make any examples that are, you know, blah, blah, blah. But with your guys, like, wanting to go see that, like, you don't want to go see that. You don't want to see a child die. You don't want to see someone that took his own life and jumped off, you know, 20-story building, you know. Now, if you're called out there to help, then go do your job. But, you know.
Yeah, some of the most perplexing looks that I ever got from my crew when I was a station officer was when we'd be on scene and I would say, we don't need to be here. And, you know, we'd go back in service, and they kind of couldn't understand why I didn't want to be there. Well, we don't need to be here. You know, they don't need us, and this is stuff that we don't need to, you know, let's get back in service.
Right.
How much? Go ahead.
Oh, okay. I'll talk a little bit. So this is Hatch. So I'm closing out here on 30 years. I actually spend my last 12 hours in the station tomorrow. And you know,
congratulations, man.
Thanks. I appreciate that. But
that's huge. You don't think so? 30 years?
Yeah, it is. It is.
I don't know. It's been fun. It's been a lot of fun.
Yeah, it's been a ride. How old are you?
53.
Okay, I'm 49. All right.
So, you know, and one of the things that we'll talk about leaving is like a lot of your identity is kind of caught up into, you know, being a firefighter. And, you know, when people ask me like, what do you do? I tell them, I say, I used to be a fireman, you know, because that's kind of the way it is now. You know, I'm not retired yet, but I'm pretty close to it. So for you, how much of your identity was tied up into you being a firefighter, or do you now see it as like the bar owner or the hockey player? I mean,
I'd always sort of, about a decade, when my first book came out about, I think it was 10 years ago, they did a bit, it got a little bit of press, especially in the South and Alabama. And, you know, they would always trip over that I was doing the restaurants and firefighting. So it was just like this jack of all trades thing. I never wanted to be defined by one thing, especially a career, you know. It was a big part of me. But again, it's still there. I mean, you know, you're 53, you're young, you're still like, it'd be hard to not stop and help somebody when you can, off duty or not.
Mm-hmm.
You know, I mean, it's just, it gets in your soul a little bit. But I'd always warned my friend, God forbid I ever died in any way, I didn't want my funeral to be one of those firefighter funerals. I was like, just because I wear too many, you know, I mean, like you said, hockey and the bars and writing and family. Like, I've always tried to be just as diverse as possible. So I didn't want to be defined by any one thing.
How much has writing, I don't want to put words in your mouth, but how much has writing helped you, or, you know what I mean? Is it, like I said, I don't want to put words in your mouth, but is it cathartic at all?
It's huge cathartic. I've always felt that me writing about things I've seen, especially some of the tragedy, the nonfiction stuff I write, it helps me validate having to experience it. It helps me validate the suffering of other people, my own, you know, comprehension of trauma and tragedy. So very cathartic.
Yeah.
You know, I've always used it as an outlet to turn to not go crazy. You know, some of the things I've seen. I wrote an article a couple of years ago. I think it was published in, I can't remember, some magazine. What's the one? Anyway, I'll look it up and tell you what, but it was about an 8-year-old that was murdered. And I just, you know, I mean, I remember I couldn't talk for a month, hardly. That's all I was thinking about. I couldn't sleep. I mean, it was really bad. He'd been beaten to death by his mom's boyfriend, inexplicably. And, you know, it was awful.
Yeah.
And he never, he was never charged. His skull was crushed in the front and back. I'm not too graphic with y'all, but I don't know. Just it took me a long time to write about it, but when I did, I felt better. Like, you know, just felt like there was a lottery of, you know, of which murders, you know, the country would get behind and go, this is wrong, and which ones we would just ignore. And this was one that was just getting ignored, and I didn't like it.
Right.
So,
well, you did have a few points in you know, that the last essay that where you said no one cares.
mm-hmm.
And I wanted, when I was reading it, and I've read it a few times now, when I was reading it all of those times, I kind of was asking myself, you know, is that fire service? Is that, or is that, you know, fellow firefighters? Is that administration? Is it the public? Is it a mixture of all of those?
I think it's a mix, but when I was writing it, the no one cares, it was just like, my career, especially with administration, it seems like it's sort of turned into like but what have you done for me lately? Like, I was at Station 21, Station 19, the busy station, and we were ranked nationally. Easily, we'd run a 20-call shift, up all night. And I just felt like they're like, oh, that's great. We got mandatory holdovers. And then they would hold people over from the same stations. You know, there are stations that would run 2 and 3 calls. And I mean, no one cared that we ran 20 calls. They didn't.
Right.
There was no relief there. I felt like it was almost like, what have you done today for me? And anything, you know, before that was forgotten. So that was just sort of I mean, looking back on what, I mean, I'm not going to change a word of it. I like the essay I wrote, but it did come off a little, I guess, pessimistic putting that in there.
No, I mean, I don't.
No. I mean, you know, I just, you know, that, I don't know.
I just, what you wrote really touched me. And I'm only asking because I am trying to, I guess, dig into what your perspective is and really, and I mean, you've laid a lot out there. So I don't mean to sound like I'm like, I want, tell me more, but,
no, of course not.
But, it just, there's a lot there that really, you did a very good job of kind of summing up. And, I don't know what you've experienced other than what you've written, but the time that I've been in the department, there's a lot of what you wrote that I've found very familiar. And I'm sure Hatch would probably say the same thing. You definitely got it in a short period of time. I mean, how many years total were you on?
Just under 17.
Yeah.
Yep.
So, I mean, I'm kind of with you. I think 30 years is a great thing, but that's just not attainable sometimes, and
sure.
I think what Hatch was saying, we've all got these cups and some of them get filled up really, really early on.
Yeah. And it does, I think people get the misconception that, somebody's more manly, this, that, or that. And that's not the case.
No.
It has nothing to do with that. It's just about processing and, and you've seen calls and they touched you in a certain way. And I completely understand that, and that's why I was trying to coach those young guys of like, listen, you just don't know when it's going to be too much. Don't go looking for it. Trust me, there's plenty here. There's plenty of calls you're going to go on,
and it'll come to you. You don't have to come. You have to go looking for it. It's going to find you.
It will find you. It always does too. Yeah, that's what I never. 30 years, like I said, that's remarkable and amazing. So again, huge congratulations. But the city, it seemed like it threw everything it had at me, and again, I loved it.
Right.
I did. I loved, making a difference, thinking I was making a difference, trying to make a difference, telling people I was making a difference, whatever. But,
so is there anything that could nudge you back into it?
I was trying to look for the quote. I knew you guys were going to ask that one. Short answer, no. But
that's a perfectly good answer.
There's so many things. There's so many things I want to write, and I want to open up another black market. We've been talking about that for years, and I want a third location, and I want to spoil this wife of mine and my daughter and all that. Yeah, I'm done with the fire service. There was a quote, I'm going to paraphrase it. It was from one of the Rocky movies where after he fought, and I think it's the one where he lost, but he fought all the way to the end. It was one of the newer ones. And he said at the end, the beast is gone. And that's just kind of the way I felt.
Right.
That beast is gone now to be a firefighter.
So we've talked on some previous episodes about the weight of what our careers has been for our spouses. And specifically, we've talked about the fact that at the time, we didn't really realize how much of that was spilling over. I always thought that I was shielding my wife from most of that stuff, but we actually had an episode where we sat all of our wives down and they had a conversation, and it was eye-opening because I didn't realize just how much of that lifestyle had a burden on my wife. How ready was your wife for you to be done with this?
Extremely ready. She's protective of me, as I'm sure you guys' wives are too. But like, I would try and when we get called up to a fire, I try and just text her a code or something to know that that's where I'm going to be. Like 4 hours on the way over, something to let her know. But there's been some pretty scary moments and some pretty bad fires where she's had to see them on TV and wait for me to call, tell her that I'm all right. Firefighters are hurt. 2 alarm, 3 alarm, whatever. And I mean, that was weighing on her, worrying about the stuff that I was getting into.
Right.
Just recently, we were on a hostage situation. This was in April, and they had a staging, but when we went in, there had been multiple, I think 2 people shot and killed, and we took a third woman, young girl with 6 bullets into the hospital, and the families were out there fighting and ready to continue with more violence. And it got to the point where I didn't like seeing what it was doing to her, having to worry about me going in these situations. I'm not even a gun guy, but unarmed, like,
right.
I mean, I'm just like, hey,
Well,
but she's a lot better with me not being away every third day, getting God knows what. So,
yeah. Well, I have to say that, for me, running a bar is just about as terrifying as it could be. I could deal with a lot of the stuff that we deal with on scenes, but running a bar would just absolutely, I wouldn't know where to begin.
well, the first one, when I opened up the one rookie school, was a bar, just a bar, no food, bar. And believe it or not, it was a lot easier. We got, when we kind of morphed into the two locations with full menu and doing brunches and all that, that's when it got crazy.
Yeah.
That's the bar, like, someone acts up, we throw them out, see you later, that's it. But now you get into people, their Yelp reviews that,
Right.
you ride a Chase soda, whatever. I mean, people would, it got stressful. I mean, I think I've got somewhere around 80 employees now at the locations.
Wow.
And man, you guys are chiefs. Y'all know about staffing. I mean, just, at least those guys, like, I mean, these kids, I mean, it's tough. I mean, fortunately for me, I've got wonderful management staff at both of them,
Right.
to kind of just, we built that quote, chain of command.
Right.
But,
so how much of that does bleed over into you wanting to run the restaurant, the bar, like a scene? Because a lot of people don't respond well to that,
That's funny.
I know. Like, I mean, we have the chain of command in place. They know they're very well of that one. And like, again, I'm super approachable. So it's not like, oh, don't look at your chief in the eyes kind of thing.
Right.
So, I mean, I talk to everyone. I mean, they call me when their cars break down or, they get pulled over by police. I go get them out, whatever. But, one thing I always get on to them about is, in our meetings, it's like, just don't be late. I was like, my God, I had to be at the station at 7 a.m., and I was never late ever, not once. So like, you have to be at work at 4 p.m. There's no reason
Right.
to be late. Like,
So you're handing out AWOLs and paperwork?
I mean, I swear that's it. Like, what is it? Like 5 minutes you're late, 30 minutes is AWOL or whatever. But no, I mean, we don't have I try and, run a tight ship, but still just be a nice guy. I think it's possible. I think we'll see.
Right.
So in having the bars and stuff like that and the employees, it sounds like you had a lot of, things to go outside of, the fire department. So it almost distracts you and it obviously is going to provide you a lifestyle and stuff like that you can still do.
Sure.
So other firefighters, other people that read your post or listen to this podcast or listen to other times that you're going to speak, what advice would you give them if they don't have like that outlet, like you have a bar, what would you say that would encourage them to maybe seek out some kind of help or what advice do you have for them?
Like those that are retiring, or
if they resign, or they're
just leaving.
Their cup is getting full, but they don't necessarily have something to go to like you did.
I mean, short. I mean, I'm not being sensitive. Find something. I mean, find something in your life that you want to do, that that you think could make a difference. It does, it just doesn't have to be in this field. It could be something similar. I mean, a friend of mine has had enough recently. He'd been on about 7 years in the worst, in the busy neighborhoods, and he left, and he's in nursing school. And I see him at the gym, and he couldn't be happier. He's a kid. He's 29, 30, but his cup got full pretty quick of this stuff, and he shifted over to something probably pays a little bit better. I don't know. He gets to sleep in his own bed at night.
Right.
But yeah, I guess the simple advice is just to find something that works for you.
Well, and as people leave our department, which this year we've had a higher attrition rate than normal. And, some of the criticism, is, why are we, when I talk to people that are leaving, I hope, and it's as sincere as it can be, I hope they find what they're looking for.
Sure.
I really want them to be happy and successful, whether they're leaving for another department, whether they're leaving the fire service for good. You know, I seriously just want them to find whatever it is that they're hoping to find. And as much as I love the department and I love the fire service, and you know, maybe we are going to be not as good as we were with them gone, but at the same respect, I guess it's that brotherhood or the sisterhood thing that I want them to prosper, you know?
Absolutely. Most of the people I know that have left have done it to go to other departments, be it for money or closer to home. So in Birmingham, the people I know leaving, very, very few are just like, I'm out of the fire service. I mean,
Right.
So, but yeah, you always want people to find what's happening, you know, and I know some that are like, oh, I regretted leaving. Wish I'd never left. You know, so that's why I made sure, you know, I took that, you know, that when I made the decision to leave, I just want to make sure it was the right one. And I stand by it.
Yeah. And you said you took a sabbatical before you made that ultimate decision.
Right. I didn't want to do anything rash,
Right.
you know, because I've been known to do that. You know, I've done many things very rash, very off the cuff, you know, spur of the moment, and some have worked out and some have not.
Right.
So this one was that important to me. I didn't want to walk away and then regret for the rest of my life, you know. But then, flip side, I didn't want to stay and regret staying. So,
did anybody at the station try and talk you out of it?
a couple of those guys, my friends. I mean, I hate to be this way. I was a good lieutenant to work for. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
Like, I like to work. I would, you know, I'd get on to them, but I was still friends with them. I maintain that, you know, I'm in charge, but, you know, I'm going to be a jerk and, you know, salute me and all that stuff. So yeah, a few of them, but once I went on that sabbatical, you know, we'd talk about it. I came on when I got promoted. It was a class of good bit. They promoted, I think, 40 of us at once to lieutenant, and a couple of the guys we'd talk with every day that I got promoted with, and they were like, "Man, I really try to hold out." And I was like, "You know, I'm not holding out 4 more years, man. I mean, if this was like a few months, it'd be one thing, but it's 4 years of my life, and I don't have it in me."
Yeah. Well,
I'm not like a downer, am I?
No.
Poor George.
I honestly, I mean, I kind of find what you're describing kind of to be inspiring in a way.
Not me, man. I'm about to retire. You've got me depressed as shit.
Oh yeah, not yet.
No, I mean, I think it's.
What are you gonna do now?
I have no idea.
Really?
Yeah, I could go into another fire department maybe, or, you know, looking at a completely different industry. You know, I have a 26-year-old son that owns his own business, and his whole thing is like, listen, you got the money coming in now from your retirement. Pick something you enjoy. Pick something that, you know, that feeds your soul or whatever, you know. And so he's like, you have the time to be selective. And that's really what it is, you know. So I'm, like I said, tomorrow will be the last day I actually go to the station, and I actually come off the books in December. Then I'll just take the holidays off, and then, you know, be selective in looking for the next challenge, you know. And if I get it for a year and it doesn't fit me and it's not something I like, or I've got to wear a tie, or I have to sit at, you know, a desk or something like that, and I don't like it, I'll stop and do something else. I'd love to do more of this, more of the podcast. I mean, the podcast is really the passion project, and, you know,
sure.
And I'd have the time to be able to do more of it, and, you know, more interviews like
next time someone asks you what you're going to do, tell me whatever you want. So I've been doing that. You know, people are, what are you going to do? I was just like, whatever I want, man.
Yeah, you said you took a sabbatical. I pretty much been working like a week, 2 weeks on, 2 weeks off for the whole year. You know, so in a way, I kind of did too. I kind of eased into the whole thing throughout this year, and there's a part of me that it's bittersweet. You know, this is a tough lifestyle to give up. You know, you get so used to it, almost institutionalized into it.
I've said that exact same thing to so many people, is that's how it felt. And when I got away from that, I felt, you know, that sabbatical was, I felt like I'd been institutionalized, and that, like, you know, by not being there, I was doing something wrong, because, you know, black market, I don't have a boss, you know, I'm in charge. So,
right.
You know, I did not have that I've got to report in. I've got to, like, okay, it's 11 o'clock. I need to get in bed because I got to get up and go to the fire station. Like, I still had those feelings of, a regimen with that job.
Yeah, there's a part of me too, like especially when guys call me up about problems that are going on in the department or something like that, and I almost feel like I'm letting them down because I'm not there to help them out or help them through that a little bit. But at the end of the day, my time is going to come just like everybody's time is going to come, and they're going to replace me. They're going to put another guy in my spot. Tomorrow they're not going to build any statues of me or anything like that. So this is just a season in my life, and I totally have enjoyed it and had a blast, and try to make the most of it as much as I could. But now it's time to go to the next chapter and enjoy myself.
Yeah. What's your son's business, if you want me asking?
He's a iOS developer. He writes iPhone apps. He has his own app. I guess can we plug it on here? I guess
why not?
Yeah. So Top Up is the name of it. It's a pretty big app. It's a nationwide app. It's similar to like a Craigslist, but it sells all the stuff for airsoft, all the gun parts and guns and BBs and all that kind of stuff. Yeah, smart kid.
Man. These kids.
I asked him if he'd hire me. He said, hell no.
He said he'll get back to you.
Yeah, but that's just touche because when he was about 16, he said, could he come on the fire department? I said, not my fire department. Not ruining my reputation. But he's actually a great kid, man. He's got a great work ethic and has done really well for himself. I couldn't be prouder.
I'll look at that app when we're done. That's awesome.
Well, George, I was saying that, I think your story is inspiring, and I hope our listeners see in it the self-awareness that you had, the real examining what was it that you enjoyed about it, what was it that you didn't, when is it the right time to step away? I mean, that's a huge thing. Because I think so many of them get trapped in it that it is part of their identity. They can't walk away from that. The institutionalization of it, the going.
That was easy to say.
I know, I really fucked that up. The every third day, it's just that it becomes this thing that you're expected to do, I guess.
And then they're the a-hole that you have to deal with every shift when you come in, because they're just the grumpiest bastard because they don't have anything else to do.
Right. So being able to kind of look at that from the outside, I think that's a real talent, and I hope other people can do that. I'm not trying to talk anybody out of the fire service, but no,
of course not.
I just think, be realistic about why you're here. If you're here, be here. And if you need to be somewhere else, be somewhere else.
And I like the thing that you're talking too about, having more facets to your life than just being a firefighter. Feed that other parts of yourself, whether it's, what you do at your church or, some other hobby that you have or whatever, but your whole identity doesn't necessarily need to be wrapped up in this. It's a big job. It's an important job, but it's going to end at some point. You need to be able to go on.
One thing that really strokes my ego about the attention essay got was when people that were not in the fire service or the police or military, and they would write to me and say that what I wrote resonated with them because they'd been, doing XXX for a job, and they'd come to the point where they felt like they'd let the job define who they were. And they got something, while they didn't know anything about the fire department, they saw that, they got something of what I wrote. It was like, don't let a job define who you are. You have to find out who you want to be, the meaning of your life, so to speak. So.
Well, and that's the fire service for me, hopefully I've still got about 2 more years. I don't consider the fire service the end of my whatever. It's just the chapter that I'm in right now, and hopefully there's another chapter after this. I like to joke that I'm going to be a Publix bag boy, paper or plastic, ma'am. Do you need help? Do you need help to your car? Okay, have a nice day, But I hope there'll be something. But I'm a little bit like you. I enjoy writing. I really do. That to me is one of those things that provides me kind of that relief and release.
It's a good outlet. It really is. I mean, whether you think you're good at it or not, I had no idea. Whenever I post something or a book comes out, I have no idea what people are going to think. So,
well, we were talking about that right before we gave you the call. We were talking about the how you must have felt putting that out there, and I would assume not being sure of what the response you were going to get was going to be.
It was something else. I remember I'd read it, and I thought my wife always reads everything before I let anyone else see it. She read it. She's like, I think it's perfect. You know, she fixed all the commas and periods for me. And she said, post it. And she's like, I think it's going to get a reaction, is what she said. And I was like, okay, good or bad? She's like, probably both. And I was like, you know, we were both like, fuck them, you know.
Yep.
And I put it out there, and 15 minutes later, that's when AL.com reached out to me and said, can we repost this? I was like, really?
Wow. 15 minutes?
It was 15 minutes, and I was like, sure, you got the right guy, right? I mean, I was like, it was so fast. And from that, it just took off. And, you know, strangers were coming from the street, like, hey, I read that. So.
Wow, that's awesome.
Yeah.
Well, just curious, what got you into writing?
I don't even know. I was comic books. Absolutely. I read comic books as a kid, and just like, I'm going to start writing comic books. And then I got a little older. I was like, I'm going to start reading, just tons and tons of books.
What's your favorite superhero?
I was an X-Men guy, real big comic book in the comic book world. X-Men. Not the movies didn't necessarily ruin it for me, but big comic book guy. And if I had to pick one now, I'd probably say the Hulk. Incredible Hulk. Yeah. I had a poster of him over in my cubicle back before I got promoted, and it was the Wolverine first appearance, which is where he fought the Hulk.
Yeah.
And they still got it. They got that whole cubicle still. It looks like a teenage boy's room in there. It's just covered in comic book posters and stuff like that. So
some good stories in comic books now.
Oh man, I know. That'd be the dream. I think, is to write comic books.
Really?
I couldn't.
Awesome.
I couldn't think of a better job. I mean, if you got paid, like, oh man, wow.
Make a fireman comic book, a fireman superhero comic book, and all the crazy shit we do.
Uh-huh.
One day we had a conversation here about having an episode about like all the shenanigans we do in the station, and I was like, "Yeah, we don't need to tell the public about that."
No. That goes back to the dark humor that you can't really.
Yeah, it just doesn't fit anywhere else, man. Only in the firehouse does it work.
Like, yeah, they're like, you think it's funny that blah blah blah? Like, well, it's not that I think it's funny to do that, or I'm just going to ball up and cry.
Yep. Well, listen, George, we really appreciate you joining and talking to us. And I want you to, you've written 2 books. If you'd like to plug those, we'd love to let our listeners know about them. And, of course, your restaurant again.
Yeah, sure. I've written 2 books. They're called An Account of Nothing and Unsung and Uncounted. And the easiest way to get them is they're on Amazon. They were on a small press called Banner Press, but again, Amazon's the best way to go for that. And the restaurant, which keep me busy, are Black Market Bar and Grill in Birmingham, Alabama. There's 2 locations, and I'm quite proud of them. They look like a punk rock, comic book nerd, reading guy runs them. So.
Well, I don't get to Birmingham as much as I used to. I had grandparents that actually lived over near Hoover.
Okay. Yeah, 15 minutes.
Yeah, and but they passed away a few years ago, so I don't get over as much as I used to. But if I get over, I'm definitely going to come visit you if you're there, I'll come visit the restaurant. Maybe you'll be there.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Give me a heads up. I'm always there. I live about 10 minutes from both of them. So
okay.
Man, I got a lot of free time. I'm coming over.
Bring it. Come on over. Bring your 30-year pen.
Yeah, okay. All right, we also
Is that what they give you guys? I mean, what did you get a belt? Or, I mean, what they give you? Like.
Well, I hadn't finished yet. I got one more shift. I got one more shift, and then, like I said, I come off the books in December. We'll see.
Okay.
We'll see what happens after that. Hopefully, I don't do something crazy in that last 12 hours. I'm sure it won't. This episode won't come out until after that happens anyway. So.
Are you kidding? This is coming out in a couple days.
It's tomorrow, dude.
All right.
All right, so I got a couple questions for you, too, that we're going to ask, that we ask most of our guests.
Bring it.
What's your favorite word or phrase on the fire ground?
Favorite?
Yeah.
Let's start that we're going offensive.
Going offensive?
Oh,
absolutely. Yeah.
Oh, wow.
We're going inside.
Defensive at first. I was like, wait a minute, we have the wrong guy on here?
Defensive. No, I used to love being on the nozzle and just getting it. Like, we're going in and just go straight up. I developed a knack for breaking down doors, and just that was it. I thought that's one of the biggest rushes in life, was to be that first one in the door, and that house is on fire. Right. Man, I mean, there's no. Whew, I mean, you guys have been there.
Yeah. Right. Yeah.
It is an amazing, amazing feeling. You know?
Is.
And I'm not some badass. I'm not some tough guy. I tell my friends is that all the fires I've been in, if I can see the fire and I'm inside, I've never been worried. At the times that I get kind of weird is when you're in there and it is pitch black and it's burning and you can't see it. That's when, that's when I'm going around. But when you can see what you're fighting and you've got water in your hands, I mean, it's just okay. I mean, water beats fire.
Yep.
So.
Yeah, it's just so much simpler. Like you said, when you have that, that visible fire and you're putting it out and you can see it going out, it does make things a lot simpler than when you have to chase it around.
When you chase it, I mean, just the hesitant, you don't know if you're, about to walk in the unfinished floor or who knows what. If fire's under you, if you can't find it and it's black, that's when it's like, okay, he's a little hairy.
Yeah. What's your least favorite word or phrase on the fire ground?
Fucking staging.
It's the first time we've had that one.
Yeah, that's the first one.
That's pretty good.
How? I can't stand it. I can't. I mean, like, they started doing that staging where, the house would be burning and they wouldn't have a spot for you, so you just have staging. And I got, I had battalion chiefs I didn't get along with, or one in particular. And of course, it was the one that was over me. So, just out of spite, he just had a staging, it drove me crazy. I mean, just standing on the sidelines, Okay.
Yeah, we have a funny story. We had a squad truck, and so they told the squad to stage, and they're like, all right, we're staging squad A. What about squad B? And the chief came back and said, squad A through Z, stay in staging. Which I thought was pretty good.
That's funny.
Engine or truck?
All day, every day, forever, engine.
Yeah, when you said nozzle, I knew you were going to say engine.
I was on engine 19 for most of my career, and that's it's in East Lake. It's in a bad neighborhood. It's the neighborhood I grew up in, and I've got it tattooed on my wrist. D19. I'll never forget it. Truck guys, more power to them, but I mean, that true truck work and all that, they can have it. I want to be there and take that nozzle and run right through the house. So,
how big a fella are you, by the way?
6'5", 240.
Damn.
Wow. So usually, to me, I always see engine. I think of engine guys as smaller guys.
Yeah.
You're a big fella.
Yeah,
you're more of a truck size guy.
guy.
Yeah, they are you interested in the trucks? I'm like, nope. So
Nice.
Birmingham kind of got away from putting the bigger guys on trucks back in the day. They just started sticking people wherever they wanted them. So
is that more of a cultural thing in Birmingham? Is the engine work part versus the truck work?
The truck guys here, they've got a little thing called I can't remember the name of it, the truck something, where they try and push, like ventilating on roofs and stuff like that. But, Birmingham's just pretty much told them they'll never get to do that. So, and it's a shame, I mean, there's a need for that stuff sometimes. I mean, like, just to automatically rule it out. But,
yeah, I think each department kind of has their own nuances, it's in the engine and truck thing. Sometimes, some right. Trucks are just manpower, so people really aren't interested in it. So, but I figured with you being with Birmingham, you probably had a better understanding of what we meant by that.
Sure.
What motivates you?
I really, really am in the idea of trying to, my family. I grew up my daughter, I grew up, my whole career was, the idea of making her proud of me. Impressing her, my wife, my dad, upholding his name. That's always motivated me, not just in the fire service too, but just with everything. I still I talk to my parents every day, but and something that, I get promoted, I would call them, hey, I got promoted. Hey, hey, the bar got voted, the best brunch in town or, whatever. 23rd dive bar in the country, and then
wow.
9th best brunch. I mean, we get, it's just, every now and then I'll really like one that we get, and I'll throw it on a T-shirt or something. But it's just still, I don't know.
That's pretty cool, man.
The short answer in my family. So
Okay.
cliches out of it.
What's your favorite book?
I knew you guys were going to ask this.
Not one of your own, by the way.
Those aren't even in the top 100. There's a book I love reading. I love it. I mean, I read so. That's probably my nerd hobby. But I'm going to go with a book called Tapping the Source, and it's by this guy named Kim Nunn, and it's just about this teenage boy's search for his missing sister. And it's so much more than that, like just the culture he has to go into. And I've read it a couple times, and I've always gotten a lot out of it.
Okay. Check it out.
Well, this is kind of it's not going to fit because you're going to have this answer for me. But what profession would you most want to do if you weren't a firefighter? So I guess you've kind of already have that one.
Yeah, I kind of already have that one, but I can also say not a police officer. So I could never.
I'm with you on that one, brother. I can't do that either.
Do that. I've got so many friends that are cops, and like we'll be on these scenes, and the people be in their face just screaming at them, and just standing take care. I mean, like, ma'am, I'm trying to write this down. Right. I don't know.
Yeah, you can get all the free coffee and donuts you want, man. I can't take that.
For me. Absolutely. I mean, that's not for me.
Yeah.
So,
if you were going to be introduced as the keynote speaker at FDIC, what song would they introduce you with?
Out of all the prep work I did for this podcast, I think my wife and I spent the most time on this question.
I tell you, man, this one stumps everybody. I don't know why. We had one guy that answered it immediately, and he scared me to death with his answer.
What was his answer?
Silence. I thought he was a psycho, man. I was like, I got to get out of this room.
We had to narrow out all the silly answers at first. I went through all the booty rap songs that we jokingly were talking about. And then all the songs that were obscure metal and punk that no one would know of. So we came up with Born to Run, Carl Springsteen.
Born to Run.
Okay.
Yeah, just those guitars may kick in. I think that'd be a good intro. So.
Yeah, I mean, you threw out Sid Vicious in your plug, and Sinatra. So I figured, we had a wide array.
Yeah, that's what I always tell people. My music, like I'm a music whore. I listen to so much different stuff, but my main, I grew up punk rock and metal and all that. But somehow Springsteen edged all that out, and he's my number one. So, I mean,
so what do you play in the restaurants?
We're all over the place.
Trains, apparently.
Yeah, no kidding. Actually, I'm up in my office, and the one train comes out when I call you guys. Yeah.
That's the second time we've heard it, so maybe it's the same train.
Yeah,
he's coming back and forth.
Just like you guys know, I'm a conductor.
That's the job you wanted.
A train conductor. I'm in charge of silencing them. They're supposed to be putting the rails up so they'll quit blowing the horns over here, but they haven't done it yet.
So with the writing and everything, and the fire service and the bars, how do you want to be remembered?
Someone who made a difference. Someone that will be missed when he's gone, but maybe the world's a little bit better for him being in it. Not saying that's going to happen. I'm just saying it'd be nice to be remembered that way.
Well, I think with what you've shared and your experiences, it sounds like you have.
Yeah.
And just the fact that you put it down in words and wrote it out, I think that's also, it demonstrates the difference that you've made. I mean, like I said, the number of shares and the comments that you got on your Facebook page is a testament to that. So hats off to you.
One thing, and this is, thank you, about all those shares and stuff, we were kind of looking around at them, and, and they got a lot, and it was super great. And then my wife stumbled across a firefighter in Tallahassee, no mutual friends. I don't know him, he doesn't know me. And he put it out there, and his got shared 1,300 times.
Wow.
I know, and I was like, that's more than mine. I was like, who is this guy? I was like, I looked him up. I thought, like, maybe he's in a band or an actor or something. And no, just people just like him. I mean,
that's awesome.
I know. I was like, I was happy about it, but I was like, wow.
That's the cool part about, and it takes a lot of courage to do what you did, put your feelings out there and, your thoughts and whatever. And then you just don't know where it goes from there, how it touches people, and then it keeps growing and has a life of its own once you put it out there. So that's great that, you had that experience with that individual.
I know. Thank you. It was very humbling. I loved it. I loved hearing from people all over the country. A firefighter in Germany wrote me. I mean, it went all to the weirdest places.
That's awesome.
Mm-hmm.
Well, it's only been out for like 2 weeks. So
yeah, exactly.
There's no telling where else it'll go.
Sure. I was sitting in the parking lot of the gym the other day making my little playlist, and he startled me, came up to my window, and this kid, I'd never seen him before, and he said that he was in paramedic school, and the chief of the department came in and told him that they all had to read it that night. And I was like, what the fuck? That's awesome. I mean, I was just like, I've never seen this kid for my life, and he can't fly. I don't know. So that was neat. Yeah, it's going to weird places, and I'm very happy with that. So,
well, again, we really appreciate you taking time to talk.
I got one
to
more,
us.
Bill.
Oh shit, I'm sorry. Fuck.
Yeah. Calm yourself.
That came over the table at me.
If you had to go back and give your rookie self one piece of advice, what would it be?
That's a good question.
Well, go back and read what you just wrote.
I know. I mean, be prepared for anything. Maybe if not that I would, but time travel, if I went back and did it all again, I would be like, you do have to play the part a little bit more than I did as far as being political with things. I was not any good at that. I was just nice to everyone and damn the consequences. And I don't know. Sometimes maybe I don't see bigger picture stuff, but I don't know. That's a good question. I'm sorry if I don't have a good answer for it.
That's all right.
That's a good. Any answer is a good answer. Honest answers are good answers.
Yeah, exactly. Honest answers are.
Yeah.
All right, that was the last one, Bill. Sorry, we can.
All right,
we can wrap this up now.
Well, then we'll thank George again, and we can't thank you enough, though. Really, in all seriousness.
Yeah, this has been great, man. I really appreciate.
Oh, it's my pleasure. I really, really appreciate you guys wanting to talk to me and thinking I'm interesting enough to talk to. Y'all may change your minds when you listen to this and review, but yeah, thank you.
Combustible is available on iTunes, Spotify, Google Play, Stitcher, Amazon, and everywhere else you listen to podcasts. Subscribe to Combustible to make sure you don't miss out on an episode. Follow us on Facebook so we know how many of you listeners there are out there, and you can check us out online at combustibleThePodcast.com. As always, we would like to thank the Golden Dogs and True North Records for letting us use their song Saints at the Gates for our theme music. You can find the Golden Dogs music on any streaming platform. Thanks for listening, and we'll catch you later.